Hi there, I'm Russell Sturgis. I'm the founder and principal of EAP Mentor. Welcome to the fifth video in our series on sustainable change, and in today's session we're looking at the fourth step in a six-step process. And today what we're looking at is how to create sustainability. So in terms of how we have it last, in terms of the changes that we've made and that we've instituted. So in the first three steps, we've looked at having the change be important and understanding why it's important. In the second step, we looked at the pros and cons. In our last video and in the last blog, we talked about what would be required to integrate it into our lives. And this one is really exploring the whole notion of how it's possible for us to have it be sustainable, to have those changes be lasting. And of course, invariably, step number 5 and step number 6 are also really important in terms of helping to create sustainability. So what we're looking at today is this whole idea of what do we have to do in order to make it possible for these changes that we've desired, that we've wished for, to have them stick. And in the actual written blog, I go into some detail about the difference between change being initiated at a conscious level, which is desires and wishes, and change being created at a subconscious level, where our programming or our habits are aligned with our new desires and wishes and what it requires to be able to change that. Now, I'm not going to go over that in detail because I'll let you read that in the blog. But I do want to share with you a really valuable tool that we have as one of our tools in the Enhances Awareness program. And I'd like to share that with you as something that you can use. And really it's a shortcut to practicing our Western approach to mindfulness, which is this whole idea that from a Western perspective, mindfulness is remembering in each moment that you have a choice of a more self-loving alternative. And so to help you be able to institute that Western mindfulness approach and to really make this step for something that has teeth that you can use and integrate into your experience, we came up with an acronym and it's an abbreviation that basically represents 4 really quick things that you can do right in the spur of the moment, right at that time where the old habits have the chance of becoming re-established, and you're able to use this as an intervention. Basically, it's a first aid, it's an intervention, it's triage, it's something that allows you to interrupt the old patterns of thought, feeling and behaviour. So PILE stands for 4 things. P stands for pause, I stands for impact, L stands for loving alternative, and E stands for the effortless option. So let me go into those in a little bit of detail for you, and you're going to see here those listed here on my left, and just for easy reference. So P, or pause, is about when you feel yourself going out of stillness, when you feel discombobulation, I like that word, when you feel that things are sort of getting out of control, your immediate response should be to stop or to pause. It's like, put the brakes on right here, right now. Don't continue on down your old habitual way of doing things. Stop and really pay attention to what's going on right now. Okay, And so this really requires you to be aware of what's happening in your body and the sensations that are going on. Be aware of what's happening around you and the dialogue or the situation that you find yourself in. It's nearly like I'm asking you to step back in this place and be the witness of what's happening. Invariably, when we start to get caught up in our old habitual ways of doing things how we've always done them, we're actually in them, we're absorbed in them, we're overwhelmed by them, we're consumed by them, we're right in the middle of it. And when we pause and stop, it's nearly like leaning back a little bit or taking a step back and going, hang on a second, let's take a moment just to observe without giving any meaning to anything. Just let's observe the facts, just observe what it is that we're seeing, and maybe take a moment to see if there's anything that we're not seeing. But the real key to being successful in this is, at this point, don't give any of it a meaning. Just observe. Let's say somebody's getting angry at you, and you're able to say, this person is displaying angry behaviour. I'm feeling threatened. It's about this subject. So in other words, you're just laying out what all the facts are. You're stepping back and observing them without any emotional connection to what's happening. Okay, the I, which is the next step in this, is what's called the impact. And so this is an opportunity to stop and go, okay, so if I do what I've done in the past and engage what's happening now as I have in the past, what's going to be the impact? What's the impact on me? What's the impact on the other person? How's this going to impact on other people in my life? How's this going to impact on my job? How's it going to impact on my relationship? In other words, think through what the consequences will be if I've going to engage in this in the way that I have before. Now, ideally, you will have given some thought to what happens away from these stressful situations. This won't be the first time in most cases that this has happened. This is a repeat behaviour, and so hopefully you've had an opportunity to step back and look at that and observe what the impact is and whether or not this is something that really serves you. Is this something that you really want to have as part of your reality? And are the consequences of it something that you want to be experiencing? And so this is an opportunity to now stop and go beyond the facts and to look at what the implications are if you continue to buy into the way in which this engagement is unfolding. How's it going to make a difference to me and other people? And in this case, what we're looking at is what's going to be the negative effect of continuing to go down this path. The L stands for the loving option. So you've now looked at what essentially the non-loving impact is. Now take a moment to consider, well, what would be a loving alternative in this situation? What would be something that I could do that would be kinder for me, kinder for the other people, kinder for my family and partners or my work situation? So in other words, what could I do that would have this be more loving, that would be more beneficial to everyone, other than doing it how I've always done it, which is to react and do what I've always done? And once again, hopefully you've taken a moment, and if you haven't, when you encounter these situations, take a moment to start to explore, and this is what awareness is, having an expanded knowledge and understanding of what it would look like if it was done differently. If somebody's in an attack mode, what if when somebody's attacking me, I use the Course in Miracles approach to it and understand that when somebody's not extending love, that's a call for help. And so that instead of seeing somebody's attack as something, as an attack, I could choose to see it as a call for help. And in that moment, choose to relate to what's happening. Maybe it's about something where you've made a poor choice and you're feeling shame, or you're feeling guilt or embarrassment about what you've done. So instead of beating yourself up, maybe once again, you could selectively remember and bring a loving perspective to what's happening and go, well, having done that and feeling what I'm feeling, I'm really clear now about who I am not or who I choose not to be. And so I can be really grateful for what's happened, and there's a real gift in it, because it's helped me to be much clearer about who I am, much clearer about what it is that I desire that would be truly serving to me. Now, they're just a couple of suggestions, but the loving option is when we see an alternative to what's going on in a way that's going to be better serving to us and to other people. Now, the fourth step in PILE is counterintuitive, because it's the effortless option. So you've stopped, you've considered what the impact will be if you follow the habitual behaviour, you've considered what the more loving alternative would be, and in the principle of Western mindfulness, it isn't about forcing a change in behaviour. It's about acting in a way that if it was about adopting a more loving alternative, it's because you choose to be more self-loving, as opposed to being disciplined about, I've got to do this, or I must do this, or I should do this, or I have to do this. It's about, I could do this. And of course, if you're coming from a place of feeling a greater sense of worth and love about yourself, then you'll be naturally inclined to make the more loving choice. However, if you're not at that place, it may actually be easier for you, and the effortless option would be to go down the path of doing what you've always done. Once again, you know what you're going to experience, and at least have the awareness that having chosen that particular alternative, you've ended up where you've always ended up before, and really sort of beginning to consider that whole notion of, well, hang on a second, that hasn't really served me, and I do have an alternative. Maybe I'll give more consideration to the alternative next time. And if you're feeling the impact of having gone down your old habitual way, use what it was that I talked about before, and that is, you look at what the impact is and go, wow, this is something that I really don't want to have as part of my experience. And so, do you know, next time I'm going to give much more serious consideration to choosing the loving option. Okay, so whenever you're presented with a situation where you feel yourself having your buttons pushed, feeling discombobulated, feeling out of stillness, remember this pile model where you've got P, where you pause, I, where you look at what the impact is, then you've got the opportunity to look at the loving alternative, and then down the end, it's about following the effortless option. Now, that is the process ultimately, and it's the first aid process of Western mindfulness. Of course, as you commit to using that over and over and over again, it's a really profound mechanism for developing new neural pathways based on those loving alternatives. And of course, a new neural pathway literally is a new habit. And of course, in this case, we're choosing habits that are better serving, choosing habits that are more loving. Anyway, I hope that's helpful to you. Next week, in the next video blog, we're going to be having a look at the fifth principle, which is to acknowledge and to give credence to those choices that you're making that are allowing you to feel more inner peace, allowing you to feel a greater sense of joy in the things that you choose to align with. Because once again, it's really interesting, but emotion and the emotion of acknowledgement really sort of supercharges the development of neural pathways and make them stronger and make them last longer. It's sort of like a super nutrient in terms of boosting the growth of those neural pathways. Anyway, thank you for reading and listening to our blog today, and I'll speak to you again next month. Cheers, bye-bye.